A quick note before we get into the episode. Oversharing is a podcast for entertainment purposes only. It is not a medical podcast and does not constitute medical or psychological advice. Always seek the advice of your physician or mental health professional. Hello and welcome back to Oversharing. I'm Jordana Abraham.
And I am Dr. Naomi Bernstein.
How's it going? So great to be back with you guys. So great to be back with Naomi. I'm excited. You're coming to New York next week.
Yes.
So staying with us. We're going to hang.
I'm going to see you and my girls.
Oh yeah. It's so weird. You haven't met them yet.
It
feels
so
strange.
weird.
It feels like you have because you FaceTime them and like, it's not like they're like, where's Naomi? Like,
Yes. I know.
Where's Aunt Naomi? I don't know where she's been.
I'm so excited though. I feel like I'm just going to grab them and like run into a room and just snuggle them like the whole time. I can't wait. I'm so excited. And Ronnie too. I'm excited to see him and you and Mike also.
Of course, but mainly them. I would be more excited to see them too if I were you.
I'm literally like, I feel like I just got like my heart rate just raised a little bit in thinking about the whole thing, just coming and the house and you guys and the babies. I really, really, really can't wait.
I'm excited for you. I don't know if you're going to be as excited after I tell you my topic for the day. It's not. I think
the pool's not working.
No, the pool's fine. The pool's. Don't worry. Okay. Don't worry. It's not that. Nobody died, and the pool is still working. Thank God. So basically, obviously, like I'm in the throes of pretty much 4-month-old twin babies, and I had dinner last night with. I had dinner last night with like a mom of twins in my neighborhood. And at first I was like, I'm stressed out. I don't know if I can like do this. I didn't want to I kind of feel weird leaving like at all at any time. But Mike came home early. He because like the nighttime routine is like, it takes like 2 or 3 hours.
I can imagine.
Because they like won't eat and then they will eat, but you have to make them eat so that they're like getting all
full
their food and
sleep.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like a whole 3-hour process, but he was like, I'll do it. That's how you know, I'm giving off a bad energy. He's like, why don't you get out of here? I'll do it. Usually we do it together. So it makes it a little easier. So I was a little anxious about leaving.
Yeah. That is a lot to do by yourself.
With the two of them. Yeah.
Yeah. He knows how socially awkward you are. So he's like, you really need some friends.
Right. I think. No, but it was a twin mom in my new twin mom. Her twins are like 6 weeks older than my older twister. And I was kind of telling her like about how like we were talking about the sleep. And I was like, well, one wakes up. And so I guess important context is she's a twin mom, but this is she went for the third and had twins. So this is her third and fourth. And I was telling her like all the things that were like stressing me out. And she was basically like, because she's like done it before, I think there's a sense where it's almost easier because it's last rather than it's first. Mm-hmm. And she was like, if they've slept through the night before, they can sleep through the night. You need to just not get them. Just like close the door. And I'm like, how do you do that? That seems crazy. She's like, they're old enough. They've done it before. They've eaten enough. Like, that's what I do. And that's what I do because like, maybe with my first, I wouldn't have done that. But now, like, I know they're going to be fine. I'm like, well, what do you do if they cry? I'm like, do you have the monitor in? She's like, yeah, if they cry, I turn the monitor off.
Yes.
If they cry, I look at the monitor. I see if anyone's like arm is caught in something. Or whatever.
Yes.
And if they're just crying to cry, I just like turn the monitor off and go back to sleep. And then I'll see them at 7 when like it's the official wake up time.
That's my joke. My kids slept through the night when I turned the monitor off. That's so when they started sleeping through the night. When I stopped hearing it.
Yeah. I mean, it was, so then last night I get home. I've had a couple of martinis.
That's a joke. Like, don't come for me. Kind of. I mean, although
people have a lot of mixed feelings about sleep training. I've seen a lot of comments on this thing that were like, do whatever you want. I don't care.
Do whatever you want. But children did like survive before monitors existed.
And also like, again, like you don't have to sleep train. I'm just talking about my own experience.
Yes. And myself and yourself. Yes. Okay.
So I get home from this dinner. I've had a couple of martinis and I'm telling, it's Mike's night. It's not my night.
Yeah.
It's like Mike's night to watch and I'm telling him how I like met this twin mom. She has 4 kids. She told me like to just like let them cry it out. Like they're going to be fine. And he's like, great. Like, let's do it. Let's start tonight. Like he was just like waiting for me to give him permission to do. I'm like, but I don't know if we could do that. He's like, I could do that. Like if you could do that, I could do that. And so I did it. We did it last night and I hated it, but it was fine. She was like, fine.
How long did it take?
She started crying at like 5 a.m.
Just one?
Yeah. Only one of them is
Can you
Charlie.
tell their cries apart?
Well, I can see them on the monitor. They're their own monitors. And like, she's the only one who has been. But she's like, she doesn't even want to eat when she gets up usually, which is another reason I felt like it was okay to try it. Because she doesn't usually want to eat. She gets up and she just kind of like wants to hang and be held. And so I felt a little more comfortable doing, because I try to feed her when she's gotten up and she doesn't really want it.
Is she crying or is she just like making noises?
It's hard to tell sometimes. At first she's just making noises and then she's like, where are you? Like, where? Like, then she starts crying if you don't.
Where are my people?
Because she's like, up. But then she eventually went back to sleep.
Yes.
I still feel a little weird about it. But it was interesting how like I just needed permission from someone else.
Yes.
To be able to do it. I thought it's because it's like, you kind of just like live the life that you like think you should be doing. And once someone was like, it's okay to have your baby cry and you not pick them up. Like that was the only way I could do it. Like for someone who's like in the exact same situation. Cause even if someone with one kid says that, I'm like, well, you don't really like know. And what if she needs this? And what if she needs that? And I was telling her all this stuff and she's like, no, like,
yes, totally.
You need to sleep. They can sleep. They're going to learn. Like it's going to be annoying. It's just said it's going to be like horrible for like 1 to 3 nights. And then everything's going to be fine.
All right. You did it. I'm happy for you.
We'll see if I can do it on my night.
Right.
Well, I guess it's nobody's night. If there's if no one's going in. Men are so much more able to withstand the crying.
It really is a biological thing. Like I remember the real thing of when I was nursing and I would be in a store and I would hear someone else's baby crying and I would literally feel like breast milk like leaking out of my breast when someone else's baby was crying. Like it's a crazy
men do not
weird.
Have that, yeah.
No, they do not have that. Like there's definitely a biological baby crying biological thing that happens. And I think it's wired into women even if you haven't given birth. Like I think there's just
right. You want to like help.
Even now, like if someone's baby's crying, I'm like, do you want me to hold the baby? And then I'm like, no, you don't. Like that's someone else's baby.
Well, that's why when they're both crying at the same time, I want to like crawl out of my skin. Like it's like the worst feeling even if I'm like attending to one of them and they're both like, it's just, it's like the worst sound that I could possibly hear. But it seems like the advice is to just like make the sound less by not listening to it.
Yeah.
And they'll be okay.
They will be okay. They have a clean diaper. They have a full belly. They will be okay. It's a lot of what we talk about, like learning to self-soothe. It's good for them.
Right.
Like it will be okay. And baby cries, like they have to, it sounds worse than it is. It really sounds, it's the only noise they know how to make.
No, it's true. And she was like, yeah, with my first, like I wasn't doing that. And it's funny because I'm like, my first is Ron, who started off sleeping in the crate at night and now sleeps on the pillow next to me. So like, yeah, with my first, I don't think maybe the good dog is good in that way because I got out all my like, do whatever the fuck you want energy. I'm going to just cater to you thing on him. Yeah. I don't know. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. And we'll see if it goes better tonight. We'll see if it's resolved by the time that you are staying in the room right next to them. So,
all right. Well, yeah, please take care of this before we get there. Otherwise, I'm going to write a terrible review.
Bring your white noise playlist just in case.
Yeah, I always have that. I will say there's something that you brought up about this idea of someone just giving you permission to do the thing, I think is very relatable. I remember with one of my kids, they were older, much older, maybe 5, 6, having sleep issues. And I consulted a sleep expert, and the issue that they had was they would want to go to sleep, but they would kind of ask me to come check on them. Like they would say, okay, I'm good. I'm
like in
going
the middle of the night?
Yeah. Like, well, just come check on me later. I didn't want to do that. Like I was going to,
not every night. Yeah.
Right. I'm not coming back to check on you, but I didn't want to lie and say, yes, I was coming back to check on them. So if I didn't say I was coming back to check on them, it would make them very anxious. And I remember going to talking to a sleep consultant, and they said, it's okay. Just tell them you're going to check on them.
And then don't.
And it solved the whole problem. So just getting permission. And then I would just say, okay, yeah, I'm going to come check on you. And then they just drifted off to sleep. And I went along with the rest of my night. They didn't know. I was kind of like, okay, I'm just going to say it. I'm not going to do it. And it really solved the entire sleep issue. But I was like, I can't lie and say I'm going to check on you if I'm not going to check on you. But I was like creating this whole issue by saying I'm not going to, and making them tolerate the idea that I wasn't going to come back and check on them. But the whole problem was gone. And I paid money just to have this person tell me it was okay to lie to them. Give me permission to lie and say, okay, I'll check on you, and then not. And then they were peacefully kind of like, okay, mommy's going to check on me. I went downstairs. I didn't check on them, and they went to sleep, and so did I. And that was the advice.
To just lie. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I could see why it would feel weird, because you're like, well, what if they wake up and they're like, I mean, I guess if they wake up, they don't know if you were.
I don't know if I checked or I didn't check.
Do they still think you check on them?
No, I don't think they need it anymore, but it gave them enough of a relaxing feeling to go to sleep. But when I was saying no, I'm not going to, it made them more worked up.
Right.
And not able to sleep. And I was kind of forcing this idea of, you have to accept that I'm not going to check on you, which at night, when kids are most kind of vulnerable and little, need soothing,
scared or lonely. Yeah.
I'm trying to force this, now's the time that you have to learn, they just needed to hear okay, I'm going to check on you. That was it. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's what I paid money for, to hear you tell me it's okay to get permission. Yeah. Get permission. I got permission to lie, and it literally solved the problem. So you needed permission to say it's okay to let her cry. And she was okay enough that she fell asleep and then slept well. And I bet you, honestly,
she just put her hands in her mouth.
Yes, that's it. Self-soothing. The hands are way better than any pacifier too, because they're not going to lose it in the crib. And then you have to go in there and put it back in, or put 17 pacifiers in there because they can't find it.
Well, it's funny. I went in this morning and I was like, is she going to be mad at me? Is she going to be I was imagining I'm going in and she's going to be like, where were you last night? She's just smiling.
Yes. Because she's probably well rested too. Once you sleep, they really wake up very happy. They're well rested. I do whatever, again.
Do whatever you want.
Do whatever you want. But I do think from people that after you do it, and you're probably going to have to do it again, they'll start rolling over. They'll go through a sleep regression. They'll get sick. They'll do something else.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if they're sick, I would go in.
Right. But I'm saying that sometimes you have to redo the sleep training after they, but for now, you'll buy, if you stick with it, you'll buy yourself a couple weeks or months. And
yeah, well, she was like, they go down at 6:30 and I go in at 7. And I'm like, well, what about all the in between? She's like, not my business. What happens in between?
Yeah, they just recharge. They dream. They grow brain cells. They do lots of good stuff. All right, I'm happy for you. That's what I was telling you about. You break the wild horse, and they fight and they fight and they fight. And then finally you're like, okay, she stuck her little knuckles in her mouth and fell asleep. It's great.
I mean, I was with another friend too, and they were saying just that their younger kids almost did better because they weren't hyper attended to over their first kids, because they just learned how to deal with imperfect parenting or something.
The birth order stuff is, let's save that for another episode, but birth order stuff is real, and it's it's true. And the stereotypes, I think, are not always, but a lot of times those stereotypes are true. And there's benefits to all the different
ages,
orders, oldest, middle, youngest. Everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, but I do think the trends are real. So
yes. All right. Well, thought you would find that one interesting.
Yeah,
I'll keep you updated on how, if I'm able to.
Yeah, I'll check in with you tonight. Text me when you're in the midst of it.
You're probably going to be sleeping at like 5 a.m.
Oh, 5 a.m. That's right. We're not talking like 7:30. I thought this was like, they go to sleep fine. This is just the early wake up that you're struggling with.
Yeah. I mean, it still takes them a shit ton of time to, I guess I think sleep training is technically when you put them down awake and they go to sleep. So I don't even know if this is actual real sleep training. This is more just like
trying to get that extra 2 hours in the morning.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I would call it sleep training.
Yeah. But I think the technical term is like, they still go down, like they're sleeping and then I put them down. I don't but they just do fall asleep while they're eating. So anyway, that's enough of that.
Keep at it. Yeah. So then don't text me because that's 4 a.m. my time. So no, thank you.
You're like, offer rescinded.
All right, let's get into it.
All right, let's get into it. We have a voicemail today. If you would like to leave us a voicemail, you can leave us one at 646-363-6294. Or you can join a therapy group, Dr. Naomi's, or you can subscribe to this podcast. You get 2 bonus episodes and ad-free and all the episodes a day early. And how do they join one of your groups, Dr. Naomi?
NaomiBernstein.com, NaomiBernstein.com. Come join our community. It really is so special. We have rolling admission. So we have some people leaving, some people joining. I really, we just recently had a few group members that left the group after 2 years. And it's so bittersweet seeing people kind of move on to the next phase of their lives. But I get choked up and it just shows how meaningful these connections are. It's just a really beautiful space. So if you're interested in making these types of really deep female, right now it's all females, but we would love males in there. If you're listening, male listener, any gender, queer, whoever you are, come find us, NaomiBernstein.com. We would love to have all of you there. Come hit me up. We'll match you up with a group.
All right, I'll read our first email. Hi, Jordana and Dr. Naomi. Love the pod, writing in for an intention. I work in advertising sales and recently have been feeling unfulfilled in my current company/role. However, I keep reminding myself that this job is actually perfect for my current stage of life, being a mother to an almost 2-year-old, and just found out I'm pregnant again. The pros. I mostly work from home, have a good pay, and amazing benefits above industry standard. Parental leave is 20 weeks paid. Sounds great. And perks, gym, stipend, office stipend, etc. I also work strictly from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. This setup allows me to be fully present with my daughter each morning and each evening and be flexible with various needs that come up, daycare pickups, doctor's appointments, etc. I've been at the company over 5 years with 1 promotion, and I do believe I've established myself with leadership and team members. It really is ideal for me in so many ways. All this said, I still can't shake the feeling like I could be doing more career-wise. I've always been the high performer, overachiever type, and my current role feels a bit like settling to me. Even with my current role, I am a high achiever amongst peers and in my ways act at a higher level than my title. I recently made an argument for a promotion, noting all the areas I've contributed above and beyond my role, and was met with there currently isn't a business need response. I also keep my eye out for internal roles to potentially transfer to, but haven't yet found the right fit. At the moment, I don't think a new company entirely is the best move for me. Alas, I would love to settle into a groove and feel proud of my contribution, proud of myself as a full-time working mom, and content in my job/role/company, especially as I prepare for baby number 2. Can you help me with an intention? Thanks and love all you do. Signed, an overachieving, settling mom.
Yeah, I do think that this is a prime example of how hard it is sometimes to just be still.
Yes. The guilt that you get from being still.
And that being said, I'm sure she is not still. She has a toddler. She works a full-time job. She probably has lots to do just in keeping her house running. She's growing a human. Like, there's probably not a lot of stillness, but there's an identity that she has developed. And I think we spoke about this, developing this identity when you're like in elementary school, where, you win the most likely to be president award when you're like in fourth grade. It feels so good. That little hit of most likely to succeed, and you internalize that, and then you kind of move through the ranks, and then you try to get into the best college, and then you get the best internship, and then you get the top role at the top company, and that's what kind of keeps you chugging. And then sometimes you get to the point where the train is just kind of coasting, and then you stop, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, where's my juice? Like, who am I if I'm not this most likely to succeed kid that I got in fourth grade? You can have a bit of an identity crisis when you reach this point where you're like, if I'm not constantly the high achiever, then who am I?
Yeah. And that sounds a little bit like what she's saying. Like I think there's this, I can relate to this. I think there's like this feeling of you're taught to believe like also like ambition is good. Like not being ambitious is bad. And I think there's this sense of like guilt that you feel or even sometimes you don't even like allow yourself to believe it, that you don't want the old lifestyle that you had, or that the priority, the older priority, because it's part of that. I think there's this feeling of like, if I'm not doing that, then I'm like lazy, or I'm complacent, or I can't, like you said, have that old identity of myself as this person, which I think people take pride in, that they work hard and that they do well at work. And I guess like it's hard. And I think sometimes it's hard to untangle the pride from like the actual desire to be in a different life, or in a, like, you know what I mean? Like do you actually want the life where you're like hustle at this point in your life, where you're like hustling every day and can't take your daughter to school and like fucking killing it at work and like rising the ranks and probably maybe making more money and doing all those things? Or do you like kind of like the balance of it now? It sounds like her life is like pretty nicely balanced, and she's not but also like, I think it might not be her year to be the highest ranking person, right? It doesn't have to be like a forever thing. And I think our brains also tell us that that we are like ambitious or not ambitious, or like into being a mom or not into being a mom. And it could be like, okay, this year you're pregnant, you have a small child already. Maybe this isn't your most ambitious year, but maybe like in 3 years, it is. Maybe 3 years, your whole lifestyle is different. You have 2 kids who are a little older, whatever it is, you have a big setup, and maybe like that's the year that you really go for it.
Yeah. It doesn't have to mean anything about you as a whole because of this moment. I do think sometimes we take the moments of our life and we so very quickly size them up and use that to determine like, who am I? What is my future? What does this mean about me, versus like, this is just this moment in time. But I do think you hit on something that a lot of people do feel, where it's like, let's say in fourth grade, you win the spelling bee, and then in sixth grade, you win the science fair. And then you think, oh my God, well, I'm really good at this thing. I'm a really high achiever. Well, I should get into a really good college. And then you work really hard, and maybe you don't go to the parties in high school, and you give up certain things, and you go to this college, and you go to law school, and you get this law degree, and you whatever. I'm sure a lot of us know people that have pursued these higher education and really given themselves up to get this place. And then maybe you have kids and you realize, oh shit, like this isn't my priority anymore. What was it all for? If now I kind of just want, even as I'm saying it, I'm like, am I offending people? But like, it's the reality, like, what was this? Ever since I was 10, I put my heart and soul into like getting this, high power, let's just call it, just have like a attorney on the mind, getting this, making partner in this law firm. And then you make partner in this law firm, and then you have your little baby in your arms, and you're like, all I want to do is just be with my baby, or all I want to do is just work 9 to 5 and get home so I can be with my kid in the morning and at night. And I don't want to work until 10 o'clock at night. So was that all a waste? Should I not have done that? Should I have just done something different? And I'm here to say, like, there's lessons to learn along that path. It doesn't mean that you should regret it. It doesn't mean that there was anything wrong with that path. And it's okay to say, well, like you're saying, I'm here now in this moment and this season of life. For this listener, it sounds like you have the perfect setup. You like what you do. You're well respected. You have great benefits and perks at your job. You have a great work-life balance. You still get a taste of feeling like you're a high achiever. Are you the highest achiever? No, but you are a high achiever. You get a little adult intellectual time. You get a little mom time. But I do think there are people that feel like they've gotten knocked on their ass because they have kids, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, I
want a totally different life.
Yes.
I mean, like, again, I think so much of it is like your ego. And like your ego sometimes can, I think, make you feel like you need to do things even if you don't really want to do them because of the way that you feel like you want to be seen, which is an ego thing. And it's hard to separate that because like that urge to identify yourself in a certain way is really strong. But what's more important is that you're living day to day in a way that actually brings you happiness, which it sounds like this kind of does.
Yeah. The moments you wake up, you have a moment that you love where you get to be with your kid in the morning. Then you have a moment in the middle of the day where you get to answer somebody's question and feel really, competent at work. And then you have another there's just these moments of each day where what do I want to feel in this moment versus like what image do I want to project out to the world of what someone else is going to surmise about my life? Those are two different ways of looking at it. What do I want to feel moment to moment versus what's the summary picture whole that I want other people to look in from the outside and see? And I think, it's a better way to look at like, how do I want to feel moment to moment? And when you describe this life, it sounds like you feel pretty good moment to moment. The piece about wanting to be the highest achiever or get the promotion is more just about seeking that next ego satisfaction. It sounds like, and like you said, maybe once your kids are a little bit bigger and they're going to be in school a lot of the time, and
yeah, life is long.
Yeah, maybe you'll feel differently.
A whole second wind of something. Maybe you want to do something entirely different. Maybe there's like, I think like having an open mind about so many paths that you could take. There's so many creative ways to build your life. Sometimes it feels like you need to choose one thing, like ambitious or not ambitious.
Yes. Especially when you put an EST at the end.
Yes.
The most
ambitious.
Yes.
For sure. I'm kind of feeling that way, interestingly, about like my postpartum body a little bit. Like, as I've thought, I think of myself as someone who's like fit and like looks a certain way. And like, I have pride in that. And I just had a baby. So my body doesn't look the same as it did. And I'm kind of like, I think the idea of being like, this is just my like new body forever doesn't feel like right to me. And the idea of like, I'm going to look exactly the way I did before also doesn't look right to me. So I think what I've been telling myself that has actually worked well and kind of applies to this sort of thing, I think, is like, all right, this like isn't going to be like my like hottest body summer ever. Like it shouldn't be. Like it wouldn't make sense for like the year she has 2 kids to be her most ambitious year of her job. Like that just doesn't make any sense like for anyone. So I'm like, all right, yeah, like this isn't going to be like the summer I look hotter than I've ever looked in a bikini. Like that's not in the cards for me this summer. But like but just because I'm saying that doesn't mean like, oh, I'll never like feel really great about my body again, or I have to accept that like my body as it looks right now today is how it's going to look forever. But I can also just like accept for like a limited time that this is okay.
Totally.
And that makes it feel easier to accept my body as it is right now.
Yes. I do think our minds tend to gravitate towards the extremes. Like, fuck it. This is it. I'm never going to look ever, or I'm going to I must. Right. I'm going to diet this and do this. And I'm going to wake up at 4 a.m. and, no.
Right. And I'm kind of just like, if you think about my life, I zoom out on my life, the summer after I had a baby and didn't have any and stopped sleeping at night, like was not going to, I don't think I would predict that year as like super hot, fun summer.
Yes. Yeah.
Whatever.
For sure. I hope that helps. It sounds like you're doing great, and moderation. It sounds like you're having lots of things in moderation. You're a present mom. You have a job that you like, where you're well respected. You can't be the best at all of the things. You can't be perfect. So it sounds like you have a great balanced life. And having a balanced life is really, really, really hard to do. And it sounds like you're doing great at that. So.
Okay, let's do a betch assist.
Hi, Jordana and Dr. Naomi. My husband and I were heading to a wedding last weekend when he went to put on his suit and the pants were incredibly small and did not fit. Luckily, we had his tuxedo as well, and he decided to wear his tuxedo with a regular shirt and tie instead because we were both concerned his pants would split open at some point in the night. The next day, he was really embarrassed and upset and said that he had felt like he has been losing weight and looking thinner. He asked me to be honest with him if he's delusional about his appearance and if I have observed that he has gained weight. I looked back at photos of us from 6 to 12 months ago, including ones where he wore the same suit, and he definitely looked thinner. However, I do not feel comfortable saying this to him. As a woman who has struggled with her weight, I just don't see a world in which telling him he looks like he's gained weight is healthy or productive, and I'm scared to hurt his feelings. I would be so upset if anybody ever told me I gained weight, even if I asked my husband to his face and he was correct. Is it unethical to lie and say he looks the same or thinner? Is it unfair of me to not want to tell him he's gained weight because of my own insecurities? Should I be honest with him because he's my husband? Thanks. On the fence and on the scales.
Okay. This is a tough one, I think, because I could totally understand her dilemma. Like I could see an argument for both, for like being honest, and I could see an argument for not being honest. I think like the way to go is almost to like not answer the question. Like if I were her, I would say something.
Answer a question with a question.
Right. Well, I would say like, listen, like I think you look, I like the way you look. I think you look really attractive. You're always like, I'm always attracted to you. If you feel like uncomfortable in your clothes, like I could help you solve that. If it's like, it's more about what you think, like, do you feel good in your own body? And if you don't feel good in your own body, like we can like look at what you're doing and reassess it. But like, to me, you look great and you've always looked great.
Love that. Yeah. I think if he's asking you, what he might be looking for is like, do you still find me attractive? Ultimately, why do we want to lose weight? Really, most of us want, especially if you're in a partnership, you want to lose weight. Not entirely, but some of it is like you want to be attractive to your partner. You said he was embarrassed. You're the only one that knows that his pants were too tight before he switched pants. So this might be about you and him. So he may just need to know, like you said, just that you still find him attractive, that, it doesn't bother you if that's how you feel. Like even if he did gain weight, that it wouldn't bother you, or that you still think he looks great, that you're still sexual. I think especially like sexually attracted to him, that you still want to have sex with him, I think is important to say that piece. I like your response. I think that's great. If he continues to push it and he genuinely wants to know, like, do you think I gained weight? First of all, I don't know if he didn't ever step on a scale. There is an objective way to find this out that doesn't involve asking you know, like if he did weigh himself before and weigh himself now, you pretty much can find out without asking you. If he still pushes it and he still asks you, then I think he genuinely might like need to hear it. Yeah. Like he just might need to hear it to really push himself to make the changes that he needs to make. I do agree. I think you should start with like, I'm attracted to you. I think you look great. I don't think you need to do anything differently. But if you're not feeling comfortable in your own skin, which is a real thing, like it might not be, I think there is a chance it might be about you and making sure you're still attracted to him, but there is a chance that he might not feel comfortable in his own skin. He might not want to have to go out and get a new suit. And that doesn't feel great to him. Like for whatever reason, if he did gain weight and now he needs to buy bigger clothes, like that might not be something that's acceptable to him. He might be like, okay, I need to change my habits here before I go buy a new wardrobe. And maybe he does kind of need to hear that from you. And if he used the word delusional, right? Like if you're not fitting and you do need to go out and buy a bigger suit, that's not because you're thinner.
Yes. I think he knows the answer to his question. And I think if he's asking you, he wants to know if it's basically, I think he wants to know if it's like noticeable, which it sounds like it's not. She had to look at pictures of him from 12 months ago, but like, I don't know. It's funny because I think about like anything with this. It's like, oh, do you see this zit on my face? And it's like, someone asks you that. I'm like, yeah, I do. But like, that's not really helpful for me to tell you that I do. So I'm like, oh, I wouldn't notice it unless you pointed it out. Now that you pointed it out, yeah, I could see it. It's like not a big deal.
Yes. And I do think
you need to borrow concealer.
Yes. I do think that's what he's probably going for is like, do you notice it? Does it bother you? And the answer, the real true answer, I think is no. Like you said, if you had to look back at pictures to see this isn't something where you're up at night, like, oh my God, I'm just like losing attraction to him. I really am avoiding sex. I don't know how to tell him.
That's a harder question.
Yeah. Yes. That's not what's happening here. I think you can be honest with how you feel, which is I'm still attracted to you. I really barely noticed. Like I was kind of looking, if you want to be really honest, I was looking back at photos. I could barely really see a difference. And just telling him that you're still attracted to him. If he keeps pushing, he maybe needs, in that case, he might need to know the truth because he needs a little bit of a push to make a change. If he's at the point where he's like, I don't really want to have to buy a new wardrobe. Like, I don't want to let myself get to that point.
And I think you can be honest in that case. Like, don't ask questions you don't want the answer to. So,
it's true.
And gently, obviously, you can be honest in a gentle way.
Honest in a gentle way, if he's really pushing it. And if not, I like your response. I'm attracted to you. I barely notice or I don't notice anything. And I would give him some physical affection in that moment to kind of show him like, I'm super attracted to you. I think that's all the proof is in the pudding. If you're like, as you're saying it, you're like touching him and showing him I'm into you. Like thinking as a woman, if you're like, do I look fat? Or did I look like I gained weight? And your partner's like, no, you look beautiful. And as they're telling you, you look beautiful, they're like showing you, they're like touching your body to show you that they are attracted to you. That feels really genuine.
And it's a hard question to ask your spouse.
And so I see why she's relating. She's like, I wouldn't want to know the answer. So this is how I would want to be treated in this situation.
I'd want to be lied to.
Yes. Basically is what she's saying. But like, then don't ask.
Then don't ask.
If the question that you want to know is like, are you still attracted to me? Do you still think I'm beautiful? Or do you still think I'm handsome? Then like, ask that question.